Alright, so we're going to do another sketch. This time we're talking about an airplane flew from Melbourne, Australia to Sydney, Australia in 85 minutes. The plane took 20 minutes to reach its cruising altitude and 15 minutes to descend to Sydney. Sketch a graph that shows the plane's altitude during flight. So I need to find the two variables in which we are relating. And so I see that we're talking about time. So I know that one of my variables is about time, which again would be my x-axis, because that's the independent. And then we're wanting to do altitude. So we would have altitude, we'll call that A, and that's going to be our y-axis because the altitude of the plane depends on how long the plane's been flying. So those are our two variables. I need to find, because we talk about a cruising altitude, so I need to find these keywords. So it took 20 minutes to reach its cruising altitude. So cruising altitude would be the constant. This 20 minutes to reach, this part right here, would be our increase. And then descend is going to be our decrease. So again, this relates back to 7.5 because we are drawing in the increase, the constants, and the decreasing intervals. So I know I go for 85 minutes, and I need to find my duration of cruising altitude. So I'm going to start with, again, my total, and I'm going to subtract the gain minus or plus the time to descend. Let's pull that back up. Plus the time to descend. So our total time is 85 minutes minus the fact that it takes 20 minutes to gain my altitude. Plus the 15 minutes to descend from where we are. And so then I'm going to have 85 minus 35. And so 85 minus 35 is 50. So we're going to be, for 50 minutes, we're going to be at a constant speed. So I now am going to label, so we're going to have time here on the x-axis in minutes, because up above it talks all about minutes. And we're going to have altitude over here. I don't know my altitude measurements. Remember, that's why it's called a sketch. And so I only am going to put in my time, and so you don't have to watch all of that. I'm going to pause recording, and it'll pop up, and you can pause to write as you need. And because it is a sketch, we want to try to keep these as even as possible, but if they're slightly off, that's okay. And so like before, I'm going to go to different pieces that I know and kind of draw myself a visual vertical line. So I know that for 20 minutes, so after 20 minutes before we hit our cruising, and so let me try to make that as straight as possible. And then I know from there we have a 50-minute cruising speed, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, so that would bring us to the 70. So I'm going to bring that there. And then 15 minutes descend, and we only are going for 85 minutes anyway, so 85 is where I have to end. And so those three lines just kind of help me mark for when I do my drawing. Now, we do start our altitude here at 0 because it's hard to board a plane while it's in the air. So we're going to start our altitude at 0, and then I'm going to draw an increasing. It can be slightly different for each of us, but an increasing positive slope line. And then from 20 to 70, do not end my show. From 20 to 70, we are going to draw as close to a straight line for our constant altitude for that 50 minutes. And then from here, I'm going to draw a line going down. And again, I have to reach 0 because we're going to land and deboard the plane. And then I'm going to label these. So here is our ascent, which means to go up. Here is our cruising altitude. And then this will be our descent, and when we go down. And so we have now sketched a graph that describes an airplane's flight, cruising altitude, or not cruising altitude, but describes a plane's altitude from the flight from Melbourne, Australia to Sydney, Australia. And we're going to end this video here and make one more last video. That way these videos don't go too long.